The galaxy trembled until a single human warship struck back. No one remembered the name of the first planet they destroyed. That was the problem with the Varnex, they didn't just conquer, they erased. Entire star systems were turned to dust, their histories burned, their cultures vaporized. The galaxy trembled every time one of their dark crescent ships bled through the stars. They didn't negotiate. They didn't even speak. They came, they saw, and they consumed. And yet, when they reached Sector 9, the outer fringe of the Milky Way, they encountered something different. The Varnex believed Earth was an unimportant backwater, primitive, the kind of species that still bled, still cried, still buried their dead. They scanned our communications, watched our wars, judged our infighting, and dismissed us as a mistake they would only make once. When the alarms rang across the interstellar defense grid, Earth barely had hours to respond. The first wave hit Titan base hard. The colony fell silent within minutes. A transmission came through, garbled and panicked, "They're not taking prisoners." Then static. The silence was heavier than death. But Earth had been preparing quietly, patiently. The United Earth Confederation had learned from centuries of fighting itself. While the Varnex had moved from victory to victory, humans had moved from survival to supremacy in the one thing they did best, adapting. At the edge of Neptune's orbit, deep in the shadow of the void, a ship slept. She was called Oblivion's Edge, a legend wrapped in rumor, her existence denied by every government, buried beneath classified code and ghost files. She wasn't a fleet, she wasn't a battalion. She was one warship, but not just any warship. Humanity poured everything into her: stolen alien tech, experimental weapons, a quantum AI that thought like a soldier and dreamed like a human. Her hull was blacker than space, eating light like a predator. Her engine could fold time. Her guns could unmake matter. And her captain. They said Captain Adrian Vox had died twice and still chose to come back just to finish the fight. The order came straight from High Command: activate Oblivion's Edge. And for the first time in 10 years, she awoke. Systems flared, cannons aligned, and the ship's voice, smooth and cold like ice over steel, whispered, ready to engage. Adrian stood at the helm, scarred and silent, eyes like old war, tired but still burning. He looked at the tactical map. Red dots marked Varnex ships moving toward Mars, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. He didn't flinch. Plot a course. We're going hunting. His crew was a patchwork of the best and the broken: a pilot who once crashed into a sun and lived, a weapons officer who lost her family to the Varnex and rebuilt the plasma cannon with her bare hands, a medic who could stitch a man back together while dodging bullets. They weren't just soldiers, they were survivors. Angry ones. As Oblivion's Edge punched through hyperspace, the galaxy held its breath. No one had ever fought the Varnex alone. No one had dared. But humanity wasn't just anyone. Within 20 minutes of arrival, the ship came face to face with the first Varnex destroyer. It was enormous, twice the size of any Earth vessel, shaped like a black blade, its surface crawling with bioluminescent scars. The Varnex had never known fear until that moment. Oblivion's Edge didn't wait for a warning shot. She opened fire. Plasma scorched through the enemy hull. One shot, one kill. The Varnex ship didn't even have time to respond. Pieces of it floated in silence, the void swallowing their surprise. Then came another. And another. Adrian didn't smile. He didn't blink. He just whispered, "Next." The galaxy had a new rumor now. Whispers spread between systems through smugglers, rebels, and hidden colonies: a human ship that hunted the hunters, a ghost warship that came from nowhere and left destruction in its wake. The Varnex began to regroup. They weren't used to retreating, but they were smart. The next time they sent 10, then 20. They tried to overwhelm. They failed. Because Oblivion's Edge wasn't just a ship. She was vengeance. She was war. And she was just getting started. The wreckage of the Varnex destroyers drifted in the cold silence of space, glowing faintly like dying embers from a forgotten fire. Adrian stood at the viewport of the bridge, watching it all. His face, hard as carved stone, showed no victory, only focus. The crew behind him moved quickly, no one celebrating, no one daring to speak unless necessary. They all knew the same truth: this wasn't over. Not even close. Oblivion's edge had taken out the first wave, but the real swarm hadn't come yet. The Varnex didn't accept resistance lightly. They would come back with everything they had, erase the threat, burn the memory, silence the survivors. AI status? Adrian asked. Minimal hull damage. Weapon systems at 93%. Reactor stable. 3 Varnex beacon drones destroyed, but 1 escaped, came the crisp reply. Adrian turned toward her. Then we make it count. There was no time to retreat, and Adrian didn't believe in running. He ordered the ship toward the dead wreckage field, using broken Varnex hulls as cover. The edge glided like a shadow among bones, silent, calculating. The plan was simple and brutal. Ray rigged the remains of the Varnex ships with fusion charges, remote linked to their fire control. Turn the enemy's dead into their own trap. It was the kind of tactic the Confederation wouldn't approve of, but Adrian hadn't followed orders in years. They didn't have long to wait. The void shimmered as the Varnex fleet emerged, 20 ships, all larger than the last, shaped like living nightmares, jagged black steel and glowing red veins pulsing with strange energy. They moved in perfect sync, as if one mind controlled them all. Adrian narrowed his eyes. Time to teach them fear. The Varnex ships spread out, scanning. The beacon drone led them right into the debris field. The trap was working. Then one of the enemy ships slowed, its hull peeled open, revealing rows of teeth-like spikes along a pulsing cannon bay. A second later, it unleashed a wave of crimson energy. They're trying to clear the field, Ray snapped. They're not dumb, Adrian said calmly. Not dumb enough. Now. The charges ignited. A chain of explosions lit up the dark, tearing through the debris and taking 5 Varnex ships with them. The shock wave blinded their sensors. Oblivion's edge cut through the confusion like a knife. Every gun lit up, each shot aimed with surgical precision. They didn't fight like soldiers, they fought like predators. But the Varnex learned fast. 2 of them broke formation, flanking the edge with terrifying speed. One launched a net of ion plasma, aiming to shut down the ship's engines. The other fired a bolt that cracked space like lightning. Shields dropping fast, shouted Rowe, the pilot, gripping the controls tight. We need to move. Adrian gritted his teeth. Punch gravity drive. Get us above them. The ship groaned as the drive kicked in, folding space for a split second. The edge blinked out of position and reappeared high above the enemy formation. From that angle, they unleashed hell. Core buster, Ray commanded. The energy beam drilled straight through one of the Varnex ships, its core imploding in a blaze of blue fire. Another kill. 2 more followed. But the Varnex struck back. A direct hit slammed into their starboard side, knocking out the outer cannon array and throwing crew to the floor. Smoke filled the bridge. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Adrian, blood on his lip yet eyes still sharp, growled, "We hold this line. If we fall here, Earth burns next." Outside, the stars were painted red. Inside, vengeance still burned. The battle wasn't just for survival anymore. It was a message: humanity didn't kneel. Not today. Not ever. The lights flickered, and the crew of Oblivion's Edge stayed on their feet. Smoke coiled through the air like a ghost. The Varnex had hit them harder than expected. For the first time since launch, the warship groaned under the weight of battle. But it didn't break. Not yet. Adrian wiped the blood from his mouth and stared at the damage report scrolling across the cracked screen. Outer cannon array gone. Gravity stabilizers offline in 2 sections. Crew, 2 injured, 1 dead. He didn't say anything, not yet. Grief was a luxury for after the war. Ray, he said hoarsely. What's left of the arsenal? Still got the quantum torpedoes, she replied, voice tight. But only 3. Particle lance is still charging. Secondary rail guns are good. Barely. Adrian nodded. That'll do. Outside the viewport, 3 Varnex ships remained, each one burning, scarred, but still moving with eerie precision. They hadn't retreated, they never did, and Adrian could see it clearly now: they were adapting, learning faster than expected. The longer this dragged on, the worse their odds got. We can't outlast them, Rowe muttered at the helm, sweat glistening on his brow. They'll bleed us out piece by piece. Adrian looked down at the screen. A small red dot blinked in the far corner of the sector, barely visible. An asteroid field. Perfect. We're not outlasting them, Adrian said. We're drawing them in. He keyed in the NAV coordinates and pointed at the map. That's our next move. We lose them in the rocks, pick them off from inside. You sure that'll work? Ray asked. No, he replied flatly. But staying here gets us killed for certain. Oblivion's edge turned, engine straining, smoke venting from her ruptured side. Behind her, the remaining Varnex ships adjusted course and followed, unrelenting as ever. The asteroid field was jagged and chaotic, full of spinning rock and dust, a graveyard of forgotten minerals and shattered moons. Ro had to manually steer, autonav refused to function in the field. The ship scraped against a drifting chunk of iron, hull shrieking in protest. But inside, the silence returned, the calm before another storm. Adrian leaned close to Ray. I want mines laced through the outer belt. Only detonate if they come through. Tight timing, blast radius set to force them inward, like herding animals. She gave a faint smile. I like it. I'm not done, he added. Once we get them in deep, I want full blackout. No power, cold ship. Let them think we're dead, and then we wake up and cut their throats. The Varnex followed predictably. The field was too thick for full movement, so they split, one hung back, two entered. Just as planned. Ray triggered the mines. The explosion lit up the entire left quadrant of the field. A wave of fire and debris slammed into one of the Varnex ships. Its shields flared once, twice, then failed. The blast crushed it like paper, scattering its remains into the void. The second ship spun deeper in, scanning wildly, searching. Too late to realize what they'd walked into. Inside Oblivion's edge, the lights dimmed to nothing. Power dropped to minimal. Even the core reactor cooled, just above freezing. It felt like death, cold and quiet. Adrian stood in the dark, whispering to his crew. No talking, no movement. Let them come. Minutes passed. The second Varnex ship entered the kill zone. Then the AI spoke quietly into Adrian's earpiece, target locked. Adrian whispered one word, execute. The particle lance roared to life. A beam of brilliant energy tore out of the ship, piercing the asteroid field and slicing through the second enemy like a sword through silk. There was no explosion, just disintegration. One moment it was there, the next, it wasn't. Silence followed. Adrian let it linger. Then the third ship began to back away. They're retreating, Ray whispered, stunned. They never retreat. They've learned, Adrian said, eyes narrowing. They've finally learned to be afraid. He turned to his crew, voice firm. But fear doesn't mean they'll stop. They'll go back, regroup, and next time, they'll bring more. The bridge fell quiet again. Everyone knew what he meant. This war wasn't won, not even close. But for the first time in galactic history, the Varnex were bleeding, and humanity was still standing. 12 hours later, a distorted signal piggybacked on a frequency unused since Earth's exoplanet colonization era. Static buzzed, then a voice, raspy, broken, but unmistakably human. This is Captain Lace of the freighter Helen Dawn. If anyone's out there. Varnex forces have reached E-class sectors. They've burned through N'. Billions dead. No warning, no survivors. They're headed for Sol. Repeat, they're coming for Earth. Then silence. No coordinates, no context. Just that voice and the raw panic behind it. The bridge of Oblivion's edge fell into a heavy hush. Adrian stared at the flickering comm screen, jaw clenched. He didn't blink. He didn't move. Ro was the first to speak. N'. 6 jumps from Earth. They're closing in. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Ray said, this isn't a war. It's a purge. Adrian turned slowly. Then we make it cost them. He ordered the ship to the edge of the asteroid field, using remaining power to refuel and stabilize. Repair drones buzzed across the hull, patching scorch marks, sealing breaches. The crew was tired, eyes sunken, hands trembling, but no one asked to stop. They didn't have to. Everyone knew what was coming. Varnek's reinforcements. This time, not scouts. Satellite intel from Earth's deep space scanners confirmed it, a carrier swarm, 48 confirmed Varnek's vessels headed for Sector 7, straight through the path of Oblivion's edge. Adrian studied the fleet formation on the screen, breathing slow and deep. "We can't stop them all," Rose said quietly. "No," Adrian replied. "But we're not trying to." He pointed to the lead ship in the Varnek's formation, a massive beast of a vessel, easily 5 times larger than anything they'd faced. "That's their flagship, the command link. Every one of their ships moves like a limb off that core. Cut off the head." Ray began. "And the body dies," Adrian finished. The plan was suicidal, one warship versus an entire fleet. But Adrian had never cared about odds. Oblivion's edge wasn't built to win wars the traditional way. It was built for disruption, shock, terror. It was built for this. They charged the drive, routed all power to the cloaking grid, still experimental, still buggy. The ship shimmered, then disappeared from all sensors. Even to the Varneks, they were nothing but background noise. The crew said nothing as they jumped into hyperspace, everyone strapped in, everyone ready to die or kill. Oblivion's edge exited just outside the Varnek swarm, drifting like a dead thing. They moved silently beneath the enemy radar, slipping under the outer layer of smaller destroyers. The fleet was so massive, so confident, it didn't even check for threats. That was their mistake. They got within 5,000 kilometers of the command ship before anyone noticed. By then, it was already too late. Adrian stood at the helm, voice low and steady. "All torpedoes locked." Ray confirmed, "Core busters hot. Particle lance ready." "Then give them hell." The first volley hit before the Varneks even activated shields. 3 torpedoes aimed at power junctions on the underside of the command vessel. The explosion rolled across its hull like fire on water. Lights blinked out, systems failed. The massive ship staggered, wounded. Then the edge unleashed the particle lance, slicing through the ship's neck, right through its command spine. The swarm hesitated. Their formations faltered. The limb had lost its brain. Ray was laughing now, not out of joy but pure adrenaline. "It's working." "They're panicking." "No, they're adapting," Adrian said sharply. "Brace for counterstrike." The swarm convulsed. 20 ships broke off, turning toward Oblivion's edge in a wave of hate. The flagship behind them began to collapse, pieces peeling off like burning leaves, dragging smaller vessels into its gravity well. The Varneks had never needed backup plans before. Now they were learning fast. "Multiple incoming," Rose shouted. "We're surrounded." Adrian gritted his teeth. "Then we die loud." The warship spun and dove, moving between enemy blasts like a ghost on fire. Every cannon on board lit up. Space became a battlefield of screams and light. The crew fought like demons, every trigger pull a last stand, every maneuver one breath closer to death. But they kept going because there was no other option. The space around Oblivion's edge was burning, blasts of searing light tore through the black, cutting paths of fire across the battlefield. The ship spun and ducked, engines howling as Ro pushed the controls beyond their limits. Shields flickered like dying stars. Warning screamed from the consoles. Hull integrity dropped. Power reserves drained. It didn't matter. They were in the middle of hell, and the only way out was through it. Adrian stood behind Ro, bracing himself against the shaking bridge. "Don't let them box us in. Brake right, hard." Ro jerked the ship into a roll just as 2 Varnek's cruisers fired plasma shots, slicing through the space they just occupied. The aftershock still rocked the hull, but they stayed alive. Barely. "Shields at 19%, shouted Ray. "Core buster offline. Reactors running hot." Adrienne's voice was calm. "Redirect secondary power to aft cannons. Keep the forward rail guns hot. If they want to close in, we'll meet them with fire." The ship shuddered as another blast hit, sending sparks flying across the bridge. Smoke filled the air. Lights flickered again. From the viewport, Adrian could see the Varnek swarm unraveling. They'd lost command cohesion. Ships were still trying to form battle lines, but without the flagship signal, they were slower, sloppier. It was chaos, but chaos was where humans thrived. Target that heavy cruiser to port, Adrian ordered. Hit the cooling vents. Ray adjusted the aim, locked, fired. The railgun slammed 2 kinetic rounds into the enemy ship's flank. The first cracked the armor, the second tore through the cooling grid, triggering a chain reaction. Fire bled out through the cruiser's underbelly as it lurched, spiraling into one of its own escorts. Both ships vanished in a single explosion. A brief cheer rose on the bridge, but Adrian didn't celebrate. He knew what was coming. Then it came. A new signature entered the system, massive, heavier than the flagship, darker, like a piece of the void itself. The crew stared at the readings. "What the hell is that?" Ro whispered. Ray's face turned pale. "It's not on any registry. I don't think it's even built." "It looks grown." On screen, the new vessel pulsed with sickly red veins. Its surface shifted like skin. It didn't move, it drifted, slow and inevitable, like death incarnate. A biological warship. The Varnex had just escalated. AI analysis, Adrian demanded. Unknown class. Estimated energy output exceeds any prior Varnex record. Weapon systems presumed organic. Threat level, catastrophic, came the reply. The crew stared in silence. Then the enemy ship opened, an actual opening, like a mouth, tearing through its front hull. From within, a glow began to build, bright, violent. Adrian knew what it was, an EMP burst. A big one. "Brace!" Ray shouted. All systems shut down. Now. They barely made it. Power dropped. Lights died. The edge went cold just in time to avoid a full shutdown. Still, half the ship was fried, comms gone, long-range targeting scrambled, artificial gravity offline. It felt like they were floating in a dying coffin. Adrian staggered up, blood dripping from a gash above his eye. Status. Reset through clenched teeth, half our systems. Maybe 2 guns still functional. No shields. "They'll be coming," Rose said, checking manual scopes. "All of them." Adrian breathed in the smoke, in the silence. He made a decision. "We finish it. Here. Now. Sir. No more running. No more traps. We punch through the thing's core, or we die trying." The crew exchanged glances, tired, wounded, half-broken, but no one argued. Not one. Ray limped to her console and slammed in the last override. "Manual targeting only. I'll guide the last rail gun by eye." "Bring us in," Adrian said. Ro clenched his teeth. "Yes, sir." The ship turned toward the beast, one human warship, smoking and ruined, flying straight into the mouth of a monster. No more tricks. No more traps. Only war. They flew into its shadow. The Varnex bioship loomed ahead, its surface pulsing like muscle under a dying sun. It didn't move like a machine, it breathed. Its hull rippled with veins of red and black, exhaling toxic gases into space like blood into water. Oblivion's edge, broken and scorched, was a whisper of steel against that scream of presence. But she moved forward anyway, slow and steady, one last bullet in a war humanity hadn't asked for. Ro piloted by feel, his instruments dead, targeting gone. He maneuvered through instinct and pain, dodging debris, weaving past the wrecks of Varnex vessels they'd already destroyed. The AI was offline, its core fried by the EMP. There was no voice guiding them now, just the living crew and the dying ship. "Range?" Adrian asked. Ree pressed her forehead against the cracked viewport, watching the enemy's energy build like a rising storm. 300 kilometers. Maybe less. It's charging again. The bioship's maw widened, and something deep inside it began to glow, a swirling mass of unstable energy, like a star being born and torn apart all at once. Adrian recognized it for what it was, not a weapon, but a final purge. The Varnex meant to annihilate everything in this quadrant, themselves included, if it meant taking Oblivion's edge with them. "Suicide protocol," Adrian muttered. "They want to end us, no matter the cost." Sounds familiar, Ree whispered. The bridge went quiet. Then Adrian stepped forward, one hand gripping the side of Ray's console. Time to return the favor. They had one weapon left, the last rail gun, not guided by sensors, not connected to any AI, just pure human calculation, reflex, and rage. Ree had to aim it manually through the visual port, like ancient warships from Earth's earliest naval battles. But this wasn't an ocean, it was the edge of the void. Ro pushed the ship forward, sweat dripping into his eyes. Alarms flashed warnings with no sound. Everything else was dead. The ship groaned under the pressure. The Varnex creature grew brighter, its maw opening wider. In seconds, it would fire, and then it would be over. Hold her steady, Ray whispered, hands trembling over the targeting dial. Just a little more. The railgun's core hummed with unstable energy, barely holding together. One shot, she breathed. That's all we have. One shot. One shot, Adrian repeated. 100 kilometers, she breathed. Adrian stared at the heart of the creature through the viewport. Behind him, the bridge lights flickered, some ghost of power still twitching in the wires. 80, 50. Now. Ray fired. It roared like a thunderclap. The railgun launched its final round with a scream of tortured metal. The slug shot forward, a blur of fire and steel, carving through the dark. It hit the bioship just as its energy core reached critical mass. For one moment, everything froze. Then the core ruptured. The explosion didn't sound, it shook the stars. Light poured from the creature in waves, burning through the black like the death of a god. The shock wave slammed into Oblivion's edge, flipping her end over end, tearing away her last shield plates, cracking the port wing. The crew was thrown from their stations, smoke billowing through the vents, the hull screaming in protest. But the ship held. When the light faded, the bioship was gone. Nothing left. No parts, no debris. Just silence. Adrian pulled himself to his feet, coughing through the smoke. Ray was still conscious, eyes wide. Ro groaned but gave a shaky thumbs up from the pilot's seat. The crew had survived. Barely. Then the quiet was broken. A new signal blinked on the console, low frequency, weak. It was human. Adrian tapped the comms, manually patching through. A voice came through, sharp, clear, and terrified. This is the Starling's end. We're a civilian escape convoy from N Prime. We thought we were the only ones left. Are you the warship that killed the Varnex fleet? Adrian didn't smile. He didn't speak for a long second. Then he answered, voice calm and cold as iron. Remember the warning. He cut the channel and looked out at the stars. The Varnex were still out there. Others would come. Maybe stronger. Maybe smarter. But now they knew what waited for them, not a fleet, not an empire. Just one human warship. And it was enough to make them bleed. The aftermath drifted in silence across the stars. The shattered remnants of the Varnex fleet still floated like a ruined mosaic, twisted metal, black shards of bioflesh, dead things that once screamed across galaxies. And in the center of it all, battered and scorched but still intact, Oblivion's edge hovered in the void like a legend made real. Word traveled fast, not through governments, not through military channels, but through whispers, pirate relays, refugee frequencies, hidden colonies. Wherever people feared the Varnex, they now spoke of a ship with no flag, a war machine that fought alone, a vessel that hunted nightmares. Back on Earth, High Command was in chaos. Adrian's actions had violated 10 treaties, 7 interstellar laws, and every piece of protocol in the book. But it didn't matter. He'd done what none of their fleets could, he'd broken the Varnex line. A message came 2 days after the explosion, a secure transmission from General Moravas herself, head of the United Earth Confederation Defense Council. Adrian opened it on the shattered bridge, surrounded by wounded crew and half-dead systems. Her face appeared, tired, stone-faced, unreadable. Captain Vox, she said softly. You've started something we can't contain. Adrian didn't respond. He waited. You disobeyed orders, engaged an unknown biothreat without clearance, risked the only advanced warship Earth had left, and now every colony thinks we've won. We didn't win, Adrian's jaw tightened. Then he let it go. We survived, he said finally. Mara sighed. You think I don't know that? The Varneks aren't gone. That thing you killed. It wasn't their god. It was a scout. Adrienne's eyes narrowed. Then he spoke, let them send more. She leaned forward, eyes sharp. I'm reactivating your command. Not as punishment, but as a message. The galaxy's changing, Adrienne. We don't have time for diplomacy anymore. She paused. You're. He waited. You're our blade now. No more oversight. No more councils. You move alone. Hunt them. Burn them. Make the stars afraid of us. The screen went black. For the first time since the war began, Adrian looked around at his crew, not as survivors, but as something more, chosen, feared, relentless. They began rebuilding Oblivion's edge piece by piece. No dock, no station, just scavenged parts from wreckage left behind. Rewired the AI core herself, fingers burnt and shaking. Reprogrammed the NAV system by hand. Even the medbay was jury-rigged from leftover Varnex tech, half human, half monster. They didn't make the ship whole again. They made it worse, sharper, meaner, something that didn't belong in peace. Adrian stood in a lower hold one night, staring at a wall of names, crew lost in earlier battles, a quiet list of the price paid. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just whispered to the dark, we're not done. The next coordinates came through a cracked screen. An outpost near the Orion Drift had gone silent, a known Varnex corridor. No distress signal. No survivors. He gave the order. Set course. Ro nodded. You think this is another trap? It's always a trap, Adrian said. That's why we go first. Oblivion's edge turned, her engines now pulsing with an eerie soft red light, part human reactor, part stolen alien core. No one knew how long she'd last in this form. She wasn't built to survive. She was built to end things. As she vanished into hyperspace, a ripple ran through the sector, quiet but unmistakable. The Varnex weren't gone, but they had changed. They hesitated now, rethinking, because somewhere in the dark, there was a warship, and it had cast a long shadow across the stars. They arrived at the Orion Drift in the dead of night. No stars, no movement. Just a graveyard of frozen silence stretching across empty space. The outpost was gone, atomized, erased as if it had never existed. Even the station's orbit line had vanished. No trace, no bodies, no signals. Just the void, quiet and cruel. Rescanned the black from her station. There's nothing left. Not even radiation. Adrian leaned forward, eyes narrowed. That's the point. They want us blind. Or baited. This isn't an attack, Ro added. It's a message. Adrian stared at the drift, the weight of it pressing against the hull like a whisper from something ancient. Then the screen flashed. Movement. One contact. Not Varnex. Not human. Something else. Unknown vessel approaching, Ray said. Non-Varnex signature but organic, same biometrics. Could be a mutation. Adrian stood. Put it on screen. The image flickered, then sharpened. The ship, if it could be called that, looked like a shell torn from the back of some prehistoric creature. Its surface was mottled with bone and metal, and it drifted toward them with slow, deliberate purpose. It wasn't massive. It wasn't armed. It wasn't even fast. But it felt wrong. Deeply, terribly wrong. Adrienne's got twisted. What the hell are we looking at? The answer came in a transmission, not words, not sound, just sensation, a wave of nausea, pain, memories that weren't theirs. Screams. Fire. The feeling of being consumed from the inside. Ray clutched her head. It's in our minds. It's not a ship, Adrian muttered. It's a carrier. A messenger. Then a voice, deep, inhuman, yet terrifyingly clear, whispered in every mind aboard the edge. You were not meant.